Man, you will not believe what I heard at a box store the other day. Ready, running guns? Time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. Truck Talk Wisdom. Anyway, I got a beef with somebody that I overheard a conversation on at a major box store. I'm not going to name the store because I've mentioned that we have one of those stores here in my area. But because I don't want it out that, people that work at this particular store are idiots. But there was a guy there who was he was shopping for a spinning rod, and he's getting a rod and reel combo, which I'm not particularly a big fan of. I don't care for that. And I've explained before why I don't like rod and reel combos that you purchase. But he did want to put some different line than what came on it, which was smart. And so this guy walks him over to the line section. Well, I just happened to be heading over that way. I was walking through the area when I overheard that, and I was just kind of following him back there because I was going to that particular section of the store to look for something that naturally they didn't have. And this guy was asking him that a friend of his did a lot of worm fishing. And this dude was probably, the guy asking the question, he's probably close to 40. So he's never really fished before. He's wanting to learn. And the dude he was talking to, I'd say he's probably in his 30s. And you can kind of tell he was just there for a job. Because I could tell by the way he was looking at the line and he was showing them, he really didn't know what he was talking about. So anyway, this guy asked him, he said, well, now how exactly am I supposed to fish this worm? And the guy says, well, you keep your line tight. He said, when you pick it up and let it fall, he says, keep that rod tip and follow that thing down with the rod tip. That way when he hits, you can set the hook on him. He goes, well, how do I know when he hits? He says, well, because you'll feel the thing tug. He goes, oh, okay, and everything else, and a lot of really bad advice. And so I just happened to be walking by. The guy stopped me and he asked me, he says, hey, he said, are you familiar with this line? And I said, not particularly. It was P line. I said, not particularly. I said, but I do have some friends that do throw it. They like it. I said, me, myself, I like this. I showed them the fishing spinning rod, showed them the Trilene XL. And I said, I use Trilene myself. I said, but, try the P line. Because you might like it. And he says, well, a buddy of mine's going to be teaching me how to worm fish. I said, dude, I couldn't help but overhear the conversation with that clerk. And he's absolutely, completely wrong about fishing that worm. You never fish that worm on a tight line. He said, why is that? I said, because when they go to pick it up, they will feel you. I said, you'll hardly ever feel every single hit. Out of 100 hits, you might have 5 that you actually feel that pum pum. Otherwise you'll see the line move, or your line goes slack, or falls too fast, or I should say stops before it hits the bottom, or you see the line twitch. I said, you got to fish that worm on controlled slack. He says, what's controlled slack? And I was trying my best to give him an example of it. I spooled the line. I took the line off the spool and ran it through the guides for him. And I said, now I want you to hold the end of this line. I walked about 30 feet away. And I said, now if you fish controlled slack, if you fish the way this guy told you to fish, I'm going to keep this line tight. Can you feel me? He goes, yeah. I said, exactly. Don't do that. Like Bill Dan says, you feel that? Don't do that. But I showed them what control slack is. Control slack is when you're giving it the fall, but you have just enough swoop in your line that you can see what's going on. And you can just about feel, but it's controlled slack. I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. For those of you who really aren't familiar with that, again, it's like I said, it's when you pick that worm up, you go let it fall, drop your rod tip, watch that line with controlled slack. Reel it in a little bit if you have to, but as soon as you see that line twitch, now you can just gently pick up, put some pressure on that fish, and then pop them. That's controlled slack. And it's a technique that unfortunately you never hear about on YouTube anymore. That's a shame. But I kind of felt sorry for the guy. Now, here's a guy who looks to be about 40, never bass fished before, so he's not a kid, and just had an honest question. And the store clerk was just like, "What, got to do this and you got to do that, and here's some line, and good luck." That's not what a store clerk should do, man. But I've mentioned it before. At box stores, you don't go to those people for advice because they're just there for a job. They're no different than a Lowe's employee. If you wanted to redo the plumbing on your bath, on your let's say your toilet, you got to put a brand new toilet in, you go ask somebody at a Lowe's, or do you ask somebody at a hardware store? Because again, they work at a hardware store because they love hardware. They work at a Lowe's because they want a job. Same thing for an outdoors box store. They're just there for a job. Because I talked to a couple of people that used to work at this place that actually did some fishing. I actually talked to one guy, used to see him all the time. He reminded me of Stacy King a little bit. But he's a good old dude. Had a Ranger and everything else, and he was retired. Just worked there just to basically get discount on fishing tackle. And that boy right there can give you some advice. But he got tired of the BS from the box, how the box store runs things, and just quit. I don't blame him. But if you have a tackle store, people have those because they want to work at a tackle store. That's a big difference. I've mentioned that before. But controlled slack, that's a technique that everybody develops their own style, their own way of doing it. And it's definitely something that you should practice. But it definitely is a type of technique that you have to be a line watcher. I mean, you can feel things, but you got to give them that slack so they don't feel you. Now, what do you guys think? Do y'all use controlled slack? So anyway, until next time, remember, new techniques are trendy, but bass never change. May the Father bless you and keep you in Yeshua's name, and as always, fish on.